And just before we do move on to the other thing here, specifically in our state, and this was something that this is in regards to the Emergency Management Miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2024. Now, obviously, someone that's been through COVID, I was politically awakened in a lot of other things. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now through COVID, and I'll push back on a lot of the stuff that happened there. But because we've got these treaties, these international treaties, the World Health Organization and so forth, but our state with Liberal and Labor and the Greens, and I think there was only one independent candidate that pushed back, was that bill that was passed through. And the concern around that, and the bill that I'm talking about, so the concerns were that there's a new state of alert for those powers, ongoing extraordinary powers, lack of oversight and transparency, and a disruption and inertia. So potentially indefinite, lacking clear boundaries, centralised authority, no parliamentary review, and repeat confusion and fundamental rights curbed during COVID-19. And this is a lot of concerns around that. So would you have voted for something like this if you were in the Legislative Council already? Would you have passed that?
Oh, it's impossible to say what I would have done back then when I wasn't there. But I would say this, Mark, that is why we need a strong and independent upper house to hold the government to account and to hold the major parties to account. Because I recall when the COVID pandemic hit and the legislation was being passed, I contacted one of the members of parliament and said, look, the legislation that was being proposed was then being proposed by a Liberal government. Can't override the fundamental rights and the opportunities for people to have recourse to the courts. And I helped a member of parliament draft some amendments to the proposed legislation. That those amendments didn't get up. So what I can say is that in all of these issues, we have to have an opportunity for citizens to go to the courts to have things tested. Now, when there are emergencies, the governments have to act sometimes quickly, but we can't take away that right for citizens to go to the courts, because the courts have always been that place where an ordinary person can appeal and stand before the court against the government and put their case. And we must never take that away.
The challenge with that is that it's become so very expensive for anybody. Like all these things is almost, it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be able to bring a case like that. So it's very, very challenging for the ordinary person, and especially through the challenges of COVID. So it's very tricky for a lot of people.
Yeah, so my proposal was that there be a simple means of people accessing the magistrate's court. And that can be done. We know that happens in things like small claims, where you can have ready access without legal representation. Both sides aren't allowed legal representation. So with some thought, something like that can be done.
Yeah, and I know that obviously you're involved with the human rights stuff on a Christian perspective and that as well, but the mandates, I think, were the biggest challenge for the population going forward, especially for people like myself that researched a lot and pushed back, and there was really no recourse, ended up losing employment out of it during that time, and so many others did as well, or coerced because they needed to retain their job. So there's definitely things that people have learned over the last 5 years where they've actually lost a lot of trust in lots of institutions, and it's a long way back, I think, for those institutions to win trust of the population back. What your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think prior to COVID, Australians have always had a generally benign attitude to government. We always thought that historically the government was for us generally. But I think that view has shifted post-COVID. And I think we have to rebuild that, because, as they say, democracy is a bad system, but it's better than anything else that we've got. So, and I think that's one of the reasons we need to have a strong independent upper house, and that's why I'm supporting and standing for Family First.